Hello everyone, my name is Astin, and today I'm going to show you the basics of parallel compression. So to get started here, I'm going to create a stereo aux track. Just going to go ahead and name that parallel compression. And I'm going to set the input here to bus 1 and 2. Now parallel compression is basically compressing a signal in two different ways and combining them back together. Let's look at the kick track over here. Right now we have no processing on it. But say I wanted a bit of compression on it. One thing that I can do is send part of this signal with a bus 1 and 2, and we'll set that to 0. That's going to be sent over to this track over here. So only part of the signal in this track is getting sent over here. The rest is just going to the output. And what we're going to do here is we're going to put a BF76 on this track here. And the idea behind it is that we're going to use very heavy compression on this track. So that means that the part of the signal from this track that's going over to here is going to get compressed heavily, but the rest of this track is going to be left alone. So you can think of it as a track that's parallel to this one is being compressed differently than the original track. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to solo our kick over here, and I'm going to solo safe our parallel compression track. I'm going to dial in our settings. I'm going to set the ratio over here to 12. That is a 12-to-1 ratio. Every 12 decibels that approaches the threshold, only 1 is getting out. I raised our input a little bit, so the part of the track that's split over from this track is going to be raised up a little bit to start with. And I also raised the output a little bit, so after it's compressed, it's also getting a little boost as well. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start with our parallel compression track all the way down at negative infinity. So we're in a sense just hearing the regular kick track, and then I'm going to slowly bring up the fader so you can hear the difference that it's making. You hear that? Basically it sounds a little bit louder. You'll be able to hear it a lot better when I mute the track and then unmute it. That's a big difference, right? And the great thing about using parallel compression is that I've made a really intense sound over here, but I can change it very easily just by easing up on the fader a little bit. So maybe I like how this sounds, but I want a little bit less of it, so I'll put it to like -5 or something. You can do that if you want with parallel compression. The other great thing about it is that you don't have to limit it to just the one track. It's operating via sends and returns, so I can just copy this send over to other tracks and have it all go to this one bus to be compressed. Let's just copy all of our sends real quick, and so what I'm going to do is I'm holding Option and clicking and dragging them, and so it remains the same settings. And I'm not going to put it on rooms or overrides because I don't want those two crushed. Now because I've dealt with these tracks before, I know that the snare is pretty loud and doesn't need that much compression in it, so I'm going to lower this to about 3.5. So although I lowered this to -3.5, that's not going to change anything on the track over here. So the regular signal that's going to the output is remaining the same. The only thing I'm changing is how much of the signal I'm sending to be compressed in parallel. And now I'm just going to solo the rest of our drum tracks over here, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start this at negative infinity. I'm going to play it, and I'm going to bring it slowly up. Let's try muting it and unmuting it so you can really hear the difference. So here it is with no parallel compression, and then that's a way bigger sound for your drums. This is a practice that I like to use on drums a lot, because if you look at the master fader over here, if I'm playing it with it muted, it's topping off at about here, then I unmute it, it raises up a little bit, but I can just turn it down a bit and get it back to where it was before, or about there, and yet it sounds better still. It sounds fuller and bigger. Another place where you can use this very easily is with vocals. If you have multiple vocals or you just want to use it on a solo vocal, you can put a fairly light compressor on the regular track, like you'd put it right here for the kick, but then you have this parallel compression going from a bus over to an aux track over here to really crush part of it. It puts it more forward in the track so that it grabs your listener's attention more easily. So now let's do a quick comparison test with and without the parallel compression. So we're going to listen to the full instrumentation, and we're going to see how the drums come from the background a little bit more towards the foreground because of this parallel compression. So first we're going to bring our fader back up to 0 real quick, and we're going to start without hearing any of the parallel compression. And then we're going to bring it back in. It's a bigger sound, right? It puts the drums back at the forefront. It makes the drums bigger and sound more important. And with that, I will end the video right there. Thank you guys for watching. Once again, my name is Astin. If you learned something today, please hit the like button. There are some related videos on screen you can watch right now. Subscribe if you'd like to see more in the future, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.